Hi there. This guy is Ambrose Bierce, and today we're going to draw his illusion. Okay, so firstly, what is illusion? Well, simply put, illusion is an implied or indirect reference. For instance, if I was to mention a glass slipper in a story that I wrote, I would be alluding to the story of Cinderella. Now back to this guy, Ambrose Bierce. He wrote many stories over the course of his career as a writer, but for the sake of this video, we're only going to take the time to talk about one of them. An occurrence on Owl Creek Bridge. So this particular story follows a man by the name of Peyton Farquhar. He's a proud Southerner, and so, since the story is set in the height of the American Civil War, he naturally gets hung by the Union Army. Before being hung, he dreams up an escape, and despite the story's vivid description of it, it never really happens. For certain aspects of this story, like the aforementioned vivid description, Bierce uses subtle allusion to help get his points across. For example, Act 2, lines 3 through 5. Bierce explains how circumstances of an imperious nature had prevented Peyton Farquhar from serving in the Battle of Corinth. In this passage, Bierce is alluding to a real historical event. See, the siege of Corinth actually happened in 1862. And this isn't the only allusion in an occurrence at Owl Creek Bridge. See Act 1, paragraph 4. Bierce uses the phrase unsteadfast footing. This is a direct reference to Shakespeare's Henry IV. In the Shakespeare piece, a character by the name of Aoaocb uses the exact same expression. Last but not least, in Act 3, Bierce describes the wind going through the tree branches as the music of Aeolian harps. He is alluding, obviously, to the noise that Aeolian harps make, and as well as to the harp's namesake, Aeolus, the Greek god of wind. Alright, so now that we know Bierce is using allusion in his story, the real question is why? Take the Siege of Corinth, for example. The siege was a disastrous loss for the Confederate side. Corinth was a rebel stronghold of great strategic value, and as the Federals sieged the city, over 1,000 Confederate men were lost. Bierce's mention of this specific battle is used to really show Peyton Farquhar's devotion to the Southern cause, as he wishes that he could have fought at Corinth and died alongside his Confederate brethren. Bierce's Shakespearean allusion also has a direct correlation to the story. In Henry IV, Aoaocb says, and I quote, "I'll read you matter deep and dangerous, as full of peril and adventurous spirit, as to overwalk a current roaring loud on the unsteadfast footing of a spear." End quote. Bierce chose to use the whole unsteadfast footing bit because the Shakespearean passage perfectly outlines the plot of the story. An occurrence on Owl Creek Bridge is a dark, dangerous story. It's full of peril and adventure, and the story features a current roaring loud, and of course, Farquhar stands below the gallows on extremely unsteadfast footing. Everything is the same. Bierce obviously wrote the story with Shakespeare's work in mind. And now, we find ourselves back at the harps. Bierce chose to subtly mention Aeolian harps for a reason. You see, a normal harp has a very positive connotation. They produce beautiful music and are commonly associated with the sounds of angels. However, Aeolian harps are entirely different. They just make this horrendous noise. Here, have a listen. This contrast between the sound of a normal harp and its Aeolian counterpart is extremely important, and Bierce actually uses it to foreshadow the end of the story. See, the reader is expecting Peyton Farquhar to make this grand, beautiful escape, and that's represented by the exquisite music of the normal harp. But in truth, Farquhar dies in a gruesome fashion, and that's represented by the ear-splitting white noise produced by Aeolian harps. Now, after looking at the harps, and at the Siege of Corinth, and at Shakespeare's Henry IV, Bierce's use of allusion becomes evident. He uses allusion to not only subtly assist his own storytelling, but he uses it to add even more depth to his already magnificent pre-post-modern masterpiece, An Occurrence at Owl Creek Bridge.